Hi guys, Ben here from Velocity Personal Training Academy. We're just going to do a short video today on the axes of movement. So this is definitely a question that we get asked about a lot in class when we're running through our personal training courses, and it always tends to be a sticking point, especially with the level 3 anatomy and physiology section of the courses. So we're just going to have a look at three different axes of movement, which are the medial-lateral axes, the longitudinal axes, and also the anterior-posterior axes. Right guys, so the three different axes of movement are not to be confused with the planes of motion. Think of these as a completely different style of movement. So the first one that we're going to have a quick look at is the medial-lateral axis. So the best way for me to kind of give you an example of this is, imagine if I have a pin or like a pen or something like that, and I were to put it through a joint through the medial lateral axis. So Graham, if you could just put your arm out like that for me please. So imagine if I had a pin and I were to shove it through Graham's elbow, and then if I were to twist that pin, so let's say for example if I twisted the pin towards Graham, it would bring his elbow up, whereas if I were to twist the pin down, it would then bring the arm down. So basically there you've got elbow flexion and elbow extension. Another example of this would be to get the pin. So imagine if I had a much larger pin and I were to shove it through Graham's hips, and then I were to twist the pin kind of that way towards yourselves, and then that would cause hip flexion. And then again, if I were to twist the pin the other way, it would then cause hip extension. So the second axis of movement that we're going to be having a look at is the longitudinal axis. Now what longitudinal means as a term, think of it as north to south. So imagine if I had my pin again, and then I was to put it almost through Graham's head, and then it came out of his bottom, and then I were to twist that pin, it would then cause a little bit of spinal rotation. So Graham, if you just like to do the honours for me, show spinal rotation. So going from right and then coming to the left, spot on. So imagine the pin was from going down Graham's head, down his spine, and then coming out the bottom. And another example of this one would be, imagine if I had the pin again and I were to put it through Graham's shoulder, and then I were to twist it. So again, if I were to put it through your shoulder, Graham, and then if I twisted it towards myself, it would cause shoulder external rotation. And then I was to twist the pin towards Graham, it will cause shoulder internal rotation. So the third and final axis of motion that we're going to be having a look at is the anterior-posterior axis. Now if you imagine this one, the anatomical terms, anterior front facing, posterior back facing. So imagine again if we had our pin and we were to shove it through Graham's belly button, and then it were to come out of his back, so almost like he's impaled against the wall, and I were to twist the pin that way, so then that will cause spinal lateral flexion there. And if I were to twist the pin towards myself, that would then cause spinal lateral flexion, just going the other way. Another example of this would be, again, if I was to have the pin and I would shove it through Graham's shoulder, it would go through the front of the delt, and then it was to come out of the back of it, and then I was to twist the pin towards myself, it would then cause abduction of the shoulder. And then again, if I were to twist the pin the other way, it would then cause adduction of the shoulder.